Hey everyone, Solon here from Wynn, wrapping up the 7th week of training with the Average to Savage 2.0 training program written by Greg Nuckols over at Stronger by Science. What I'll do is I'll leave links below for both the program and the Stronger by Science website. Check them out, great resource there, great for learning and expanding your knowledge regarding strength training. So week 7 is a deload week. Wrapping up that first mesocycle of training. While this is kind of the first mesocycle of hypertrophy training, it's the second mesocycle I'm completing with the Average to Savage training program. If you followed my previous videos, I did do 6 weeks of the strength focus of the Average to Savage training program. And now we just made that shift over to hypertrophy just for a little bit of a change and keep up with that program update that Greg released last month or so, about 8 weeks ago now. So the program simply reduces weights by around 20 to 30%, and as well as reducing volume by a little bit as well. So we're both dropping weights and volume in order to help recover over the course of the week, get some of that mental refreshness, physical refreshness in, not really stressing the body. The biggest thing you have to resist the urge to do is throw in extra accessory work because we're doing lighter weights for less volume. The training sessions are relatively quick and relatively easy, but with that in mind, you don't really want to go hard on the accessory work with the free time you have, just because that'll kind of defeat the point of having a deload week by turning it from a low stress week into a high stress week, even though those might not be muscles that cause overall systemic fatigue. So like you can't go hard on bicep curls, but still that'll cause some fatigue that isn't really part of the program to help you recover from. Being a deload week, I kind of wanted to use it to reset movements for the next phase of training rather than completing the same movements I've done for the last 6 weeks. I thought it was a great time to introduce new movements with a lighter weight so that we can familiarize those movements for at least a week and find any bad things with the combination, with the exercise selections and combinations, things of that nature. I like to use it kind of experiment with movement combinations for the day. If it's too taxing, I'll know that I should take that out for next week. And being lightweight, it kind of refamiliarizes me with the movements. No extremely new movements there, just movements that I haven't done for the last 6 weeks. I just want a little week refresher course. I'm actually also reducing weekly training frequency. We're dropping that from 4 times a week to 3 times a week, kind of compressing that frequency in an attempt to free up some more time so I can create some more content for YouTube so that you guys can have some more valuable content being created here. So hopefully you guys will subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on that future content coming up. Rather than go over training footage over the course of the week, which could be rather boring since it's light and low reps, nothing really interesting happening there, I'll save the new movements for next week when we do increase that weight and actually do some stressful work here. So instead, what I'll be doing is throwing over to some performance metrics for over the course of the last 6 weeks. Part of the program is they give you some estimated training maxes based on how you performed on the previous weeks, so we can see exactly how that one of those metrics is tracking over the last 6 weeks and how the performance is based over that. So starting off with the SSB squat, you'll notice here significant decreases in that estimated 1 rep max. And that is going to be a common trend, a common pattern you'll see amongst pretty much all of the main lifts that I've been using here. Low incline, close grip bench press. And a lot of this stems from the fact that on that final set where you need to increase the amount of reps you do just as a burnout set, I'm not able to keep up with the amount of volume that the program does require. So if it was only, say, 3 sets, or if we had a lower rep count per set, potentially would have shown increases in that. Here's one of the only increases in performance across the week was the slingshot bench press. Again, back down here with the front squats. And again, it stems from the fact that Greg does recommend to not put your actual 1 rep maxes in the opening program. Just because if you aren't used to this type of high volume training, it is going to take its toll quite quickly, just because I have been used to performing within that 6 and under reps per set. And here we're performing over 8 consistently, even up to 12 reps a set. And that's just I'm just not able to keep up with that from a training perspective. So because each week we're not really making huge shifts in the weight, it's kind of these small percentage changes. It does mean slow decremental changes in the weights used in a hope for me to catch up to that weight. But again, over the course of 6 weeks, didn't really catch up. And again, here's the second movement that did show signs of improvement, just the SSB good morning. So that'll wrap up the first phase of training. As you can see, not a great performance overall. All those estimated 1 rep maxes kind of decreased the overall trend there, which is either indicative of me selecting too higher of a weight, which I think is the biggest issue there. Greg does advise you at the start of the program in the instructions to not enter in your actual 1 rep max, not to enter in your actual 1 rep maxes if you haven't done hypertrophy training in a while, just because the stress of that new higher tonnage work is going to be quite brutal. And that was blatantly true here, as we can see by the decrease in performance, because one of the things with the program is that I like is that there's no huge swings in adjustments. We're really triangulating on how much weight we use week to week. So it might look like training was a complete failure for the first phase of training. I would argue not so, because the 1 rep max estimates is really just one metric out of the bigger picture of things. When we look at other subjective benchmarks and standards that I think have happened over the course of the first phase, I think overall we're tracking to have some really good outcomes. Maybe after the full course of the program has run its cycle, not just after this first phase. Overall fatigue levels have been good. I haven't felt much accumulated fatigue over the course of the first 6 weeks training. No week did I feel really, really bad in terms of tiredness, achy, just general fatigue, stress levels. So running into that deload week felt kind of nice. I didn't feel as tired as I would have given previous training cycles. There's also the biggest thing for me is there's also been no real shoulder, bicep injury or overuse pain type symptoms popping up there. My joints have felt really healthy throughout this whole first phase of training, which I think is a big win there for me personally. When it did come to heavy strength training in the low reps, felt my shoulders get really beat up from that. So this is a nice change. Maybe it'll help give me some time, 21 weeks, half a year, roughly, to give that joint a little bit more time to recover, so that next time we hit those strength-focused programs, it won't be as painful as it was in the past. I do think my conditioning is improving slightly, although the training sessions are still tough to complete. They're getting less tough to complete each week. So each week feels a little better in terms of like being out of breath, keeping up with the training. Finally, something that's kind of often ignored, but I think plays an important role in training, is that my general enjoyment and excitement around the training program hasn't really waned over the last 6 weeks of training, or last 7 weeks of training, I should say. Each week to week, I'm still looking forward to training every single day that I do train. My excitement for the program and my enjoyment around the program is still quite high, hasn't really dipped off in any meaningful way, I don't think. And I think that's a huge part of creating long-term adherence to a program, because by keeping the enjoyment levels quite high, it's going to be something that you're not really fighting against. It's really going with your mindset. And I think having that mental enjoyment out of a program is a huge kind of underrated factor with how good a program is, because if you don't enjoy it, it's going to be really hard to keep coming back week to week. So I think when we factor in the full picture and add in some other metrics of performance, I think the program is tracking quite well. Maybe not so with the estimated max performance, but I think in all other things considered, we're doing quite well. So make sure to tune in next week for the first week of the second phase of Average to Savage 2.0, where I do introduce some new movements. Teaser, we might be introducing some low bar back squats again. So to make sure to tune in next week to see how that looks after doing around 12 weeks of no low bar back squat. This has been Selwyn from Wynn Strength, and remember, a better life through strength.